It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Lynne Harley. Hi, Lynne. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much, Douglas, for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for coming on. It's a pleasure to talk to you. And as we were just talking about before we got on, you said you are in a tent.
I am in a tent. This is actually the second day of my bike tour. So I've set a rather audacious goal of making my way from Pike Lake, Saskatchewan in Canada to Montreal, Quebec. And I'm doing it to celebrate my brother's death and life, and to also raise awareness and donations for an amazing organization called jack.org that supports youth with mental health in our country.
Oh, well, that's great. How far is that?
3,000 kilometers.
Oh, okay. Quite a ways. Now, let me ask you something about that. Generally speaking, because we do see a lot of things in the news of people walking across the country, biking across the country. Obviously, you don't just start and continue forever, right? I mean, you do stop and you do take breaks, but do you actually, you would do whatever you're going to do during the day. How many miles do you, or kilometers, do you average in one day?
Well, I'm just starting out, and I'm in training as I start. So I'm going to be building up. So today I did about 50 kilometers, and then it depends too. It depends on the weather. We've had a lot of rain and just really, really ridiculous winds. But this morning, fortunately, I had the wind behind me, which was awesome, and I'm glad I got off the highway because they're predicting more rain. It's quite a dark sky. So I had an opportunity to get settled in a campground. I actually reached my destination that I was planning to go to today. So
okay. So you map out where you're about how far you're going to go, and you actually stay there and then pick up the next day and continue, because I know that there has been some talk with certain bikes across America and walking across, where they would actually do one section and then they'd fly home, and then they would do the next section a month later and just continue like that. But you are actually going to stay where you have gotten to and then pick up the next day and continue on?
Yes, that's the plan. I'm actually going to cycle till about the 6th of September, wherever that takes me, and then I will be done. But my plan is to end up in Montreal, Quebec, in order to actually officiate my oldest son's wedding on September 10th. So I had a destination in mind, and it just seemed, I met a couple of people who've done some touring, and there was a part of me that thought, whoa, what if I've just written a book called What If You Could? So I'm living into this thinking, what if I could do this? It would be amazing. So I'm just really taking it one day at a time and seeing how I do. Okay.
So, and you're just camping along the way? Like you do your bike ride and then stop, find somewhere or do you have it mapped out where you're going to be staying?
No, because again, it depends on weather. It's just so iffy. If I get caught in the system, then I'm not going to stay on the highway. But I also I've put it out on my pages, and I have a few places along the way where people are offering that I can come and either set up in my tent in their yard, or they're inviting me to stay in their home. But that's not going to be like every night, and again, just drawing on the experience of a couple of people who've toured said, you'd be amazed at the generosity of people and welcoming you to, you don't even ask them, why don't you come to my house, come and stay at my house. So when I set out, I just really want to be open to the experience. It's not so much about the destination for me right now. It's about the journey. And I mean, I am a senior citizen doing this. So this is out of my comfort zone in many ways. I've never cycled, more than I did one little trip before I came, an overnighter, and it was really horrendous conditions. We had crosswind, we had a headwind, It's the first day I rode with my bike loaded, and so it was really quite terrifying. And today went much better, I'm happy to say. And I think the more I get on my bike, the more I'm going to feel more confident. So,
well, looking at your photo, I would have never guessed you were a senior citizen. So you look very good. And how many people are going with you, or are you doing this alone?
I'm doing it alone. Yeah, I'm doing it alone.
So there's nobody in your group. You don't have a group. You're just all by yourself.
Yeah, no, it started. I had joined a biking club close to my home and went out for my very first ride, post-COVID on May 1st. And I had the opportunity to meet 2 women who have done tour biking. And I just was, I don't know, I got really excited about the thought that I could do something like that. Although I have to say, from where I am now, I had no context for what I was getting into. And so I just started. It took me, I didn't even have the bike that I would take on my tour. I had a bike. So since the 1st of May, I've actually bought a bike, bought all my supplies. I'm traveling with panniers on the front and the back, so kind of like saddlebags. Had to buy the tent, had to buy everything. I've bought everything. And I also got my book fully completed, and it should be published and for sale by the middle of July. And that's also part of this tour, is that a portion of each book I sell is going to go to the organization that I'm trying to create money and awareness for,
okay.
jack.org.
Let's talk a little bit about your brother, because you mentioned at the beginning of this interview that your brother had died and that you were biking for him and to raise awareness for mental health. Now, your brother, according to this bio, says he was 58 years old and struggled with mental health issues, and he was found dead. But the mental health issues started from the time he was a teenager. Is that correct?
I think looking back, I would say yes. I mean, it was really apparent when he was probably in his late adolescence, early 20s. And I know, just working with jack.org and, learning more about what they do and their statistics, like their evidence-based, they said, 70% of all mental health issues begin in childhood and adolescence. So they're really trying to, bring awareness, break down barriers so, youth can come forward and talk about it and get the resources and support they need. And maybe, if they can deal with it at that time, it's something that they'll be able to, live into their lives more successfully if they can, have the support they need to get through those times. And, 58 years ago, or if I could take off, 20 years, even, 30, 40 years ago, we just didn't talk about it. Often it was just, people have an addiction, but I also think, really, what is an addiction but just an opportunity, or not opportunity, just a means of trying to control a symptom. People don't want to feel what they're feeling, so they're using something. So I don't think the addiction is the problem so much as that there's symptoms underneath that they're trying to not experience. So.
Well, was that the cause of death for your brother, was overdose of some kind?
We couldn't even determine that, but he had attempted prior to that. He just kind of fell into the cracks, and he was found, sometime after he was actually dead. So the autopsy couldn't even determine it. But his life had been just a constant struggle in and out of, kind of detox centers, institutions, and then he would check himself out. I mean, mental health is challenging for sure.
Okay. Now, you have sort of stated that you think it's one and the same, right? That actually rehab for drug addiction or alcohol is the symptom of a more bigger issue of mental health, right? Which I know that years ago people didn't consider the things the same thing. It was sort of like two separate issues. Well, you were either an alcoholic or you had mental problems. It wasn't both. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I mean, I grew up in a home, with a father who drank abusively, and, he was called an alcoholic. But I know with my brother, he also, had periods where he would get sober, and he would also end up, dealing with, he had other mental health issues. He was still not feeling, with the alcohol gone, there was still things that, were really causing him a lot of mental distress in his life. And he had been diagnosed with OCD, bipolar, the diagnoses. So I mean, I'm not an expert here. I guess I'm just, reflecting on that. I think that when people use any substance addictively or have behaviors, it's usually as a means to
self-medicate. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, though. I mean, all of those terms, and I'm 60 years old, so I can kind of relate to that time period. All of those terms didn't exist when I was in school and growing up in high school. OCD,
Right.
ADHD, none of them existed. Those all came, 20 years later. So they would call you, oh, you're just a hyperactive kid. You're just a problem kid. You're just and they wouldn't deal with the issue. If you didn't behave yourself, you got punished, right?
Right.
And that's how it was back then. Well, okay. So what made you decide to ride the bike for this?
Well, part of it was just, when I listened to these two women share their experiences about cycling, I thought, wow, that would be amazing. And I had already talked to Jack.org in the fall when I started writing this book. This organization was actually started by two parents whose son name was Jack, and he committed suicide in his first year of university. And they said they had no idea he was struggling. And they, decided it started out as a memorial, and they just really had the vision that, every young person who's struggling should be able to talk about it and get the support that they need. And they said, for whatever reason, our son obviously didn't talk about it, until it was too late. So I just started, it's all come together really so synchronistically, but, I got the book published. I had talked to Jack.org in the fall about donating a portion of my sales, just really in memory and I guess honor and celebration of my brother. And then when I decided to do the cycle, and I was talking to the founder who was the father of Jack, he said, every May we have the Jack Ride, and it's the biggest biking mental health fundraising event that happens in our country. And so then it just seemed really interesting that I would be biking. This is what I decided I wanted to do. And also I remember, my brother, when he had those moments of wellness and well-being, he loved to bike. He was biking with a group when he was a young adult. So it just even, it just seemed like, it would be even that much more meaningful. So that's how it all kind of transpired, and it happened quickly, and I just didn't give it a lot of second guessing. And now here I am.
In a tent.
Day 2 of this ride.
Yeah,
in a tent.
In a tent.
Yeah.
So how far are you along? How many kilometers do you have at your back now?
Well, I started in Pike Lake again because, first of all, I started on Father's Day because it was 5 years ago on Father's Day that I was pulling my kayak out of the lake and the phone rang and I got the news that my brother had died. And so it just seemed, 5 years later, I've moved forward with my life. I've done some, amazing things. And I just felt like, this is an opportunity to, I guess, celebrate my brother. And I think about even Jack's life. Jack's life was not for nothing because this incredible organization has resulted, because of his passing. And I guess I felt the same way as my brother. He was an amazing young man when he was at his best. He was so bright and he had a great sense of humor, and he was just a caring, kind person. And I think out of all my siblings, I really felt a deep connection to him. And I'm the second oldest and he's the youngest. So yeah, I guess I'm at a point in my life where I think, I want to do something meaningful. I want to leave a legacy, however that looks. I've got 3 grown sons that I, want to be a strong role model for. And it just felt like the thing I wanted to do. And I really feel there was some divine guidance in all of this.
And so how far along are you now?
85 kilometers.
Okay. All right. And 2,200 more to go.
There you go.
At this point? All right.
The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step.
Okay. Let me just hit on your book just a little bit, and then we're going to kind of wind this down. Your book is called What If You Could, and I see a picture of a cartoon caterpillar on a leaf. Is this a children's book?
It's a children's book. I mean, it's written as a picture book, which would target kids ages 4 to 8. But I have a vision. I've already got coaches. I'm a life coach who are asking for this to give to their clients because it's one of those books. To me, it's a classic. When my son graduated from high school, I got him all the places you go by Dr. Seuss. And to me, this book has got such a powerful message to anybody who's transitioning change. If you're graduating from high school, leaving a job, moving. It's about really leaning into that voice that cheers for us when it's time to leave our comfort zone. But, sadly, we also hear from the other voice that often says, well, who do you think you are? I mean, I've heard from that voice since I made these decisions to just even write the book and to even do this tour. Who do you think you are? You're never going to do that. What are people going to say? And but and I think too, because I'm doing it for Jack.org, what I really believe, especially as a coach, and this is the work I do, is that when people are pulled by their vision, when they're living into something bigger than them, instead of just being pushed by their conditions, that this is when I think we can really lean into our mental wellness. We have, and I mean, we all live on a spectrum. There's days, I'm sure, and there's years in your own life that, for me, I can say when I felt, more stronger mentally, more focused. There's times when, life happens, grief, whatever, when, life can feel a little wobbly. So I just think it's a beautiful message. And I also think that when people are living in wellness, they're more able to discern that voice. They can hear the voice that's for them, the voice that encourages, the voice that believes, the voice that says, well, what if you could do this? Believe it, and no way will be made. And then it's recently, I was just I heard a quote by Friedrich Nietzsche, and he said something about, if people have a why, they can endure almost anything. And I think that, when people do have a vision and they have something pulling them forward, then, they're putting their attention more on that than sort of the problems that sometimes can really pull us down.
Well, I agree with you. Yeah. And you said that some of the proceeds of the sale of the book are going to go to the organization as well?
Yes. A portion of every book sale will go to the organization. And I also have a donor page so people can donate directly. I've set another audacious goal. It's like, why stop now? So I've set a goal to raise $100,000 for them.
Oh, great.
And between the sales of my book and between people just making a charitable donation, it's a registered charity. They'll get a receipt for income tax. That I'll just see what happens.
Okay. Well, Lynne, we got to wind this down. Thank you so much for coming on. Can you give out the website so for people if they want to donate?
Yeah, well, actually, if they just go to my website, www.lynne, L-Y-N-N-E, Harley, HARLEY.com, that page will take them to all the links. There's a pre-sale link for the book right now. It will be for sale in July. And there's also my donor page link there that will take them directly to the organization that I'm raising funds for, and they can make a donation that way.
Okay, great. Well, best of luck with your bike journey. I hope things go well, and I hope it stops raining long enough that you can get through the whole thing without getting soaked every time you go out.
No, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity for sharing what I'm doing. So. Okay,
best of luck.
And thanks so much, Doug.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Douglas Coleman's Don't Do a Podcast is a dryly humorous rant about Douglas's pet peeve, the unrelenting torrent of podcasts hitting the web on a constant basis. As technology has put podcasting within the reach of anyone, many wholly unqualified people have taken the plunge. This witty polemic tries to persuade them from broadcasting their drivel using Douglas's brand of sarcastic humor. Now on Amazon, only 99 cents.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
Hey, this is Ray Powers. Don't touch anything. You've got it right where you need it. Tuned in to The Douglas Coleman Show. You heard me.
Okay, please welcome to The Douglas Coleman Show, Nathan Ingram. Hi, Nathan. How are you?
Hey, Mr. Coleman, doing well.
Well, thank you for coming on this show. I appreciate it. Let's see.
Thank you.
You've got a book called Christ at the Coffee Shop, and it looks like the cover that's a Norman Rockwell painting, yeah?
Yeah, yes, sir. Sure is.
Okay. Is this your first book, or have you published other work?
It is my first one. I've never written a book before.
Okay. Why did you decide to do this?
Well, it's a long story, but it ends up that I got it to a point in my life to where I thought that I was seeing God at work in ordinary things, and I thought I'd just write about it. My dad had said a few years earlier, he said, some people look for God everywhere and they can't find him anywhere, and he said, I look for him everywhere, and everywhere I look, there he is. And I got to thinking, well, that's a really neat way to look at life. And so I started doing that, and then I just started writing down things that I saw in just ordinary life, and I thought I saw God at work and how it all turned out. And so I just wrote those down, and it ended up being a few little stories there and ended up in a book.
Well, maybe to try to explain that a little bit more to people who wouldn't necessarily know what you're referring to, you want to just read a little bit of one of your stories, just to give people an idea what you mean by seeing God?
Well, I can tell you one. I don't have my book here with me.
Oh, all right. Well, just tell us one then, yeah.
Okay. Well, I had a brother who was about 4 years older than I was, and he was kind of like hyperactive. He would try everything, and he tried, mostly what he tried was my daddy's patience. And we lived on a farm in East Tennessee, and we were cutting a hemlock tree down on the creek. This tree was too big. You couldn't hardly reach around it. Two people couldn't reach around it, and there wasn't a limb on it for a long way up there. And we cut it down, and it was too big for the little tractor we had to pull it up the hill. But my brother, he thought he could do it, and nobody had listened to him, and he wouldn't listen to us when we said he couldn't. And so he hooked on to it, started up the hill with it, but he couldn't get it to go. He started up the hill, but the little tractor was too small, like we thought it was, and it reared up and swung around, and the front end came down on the shovel we had there, and it broke the handle on the shovel. Well, ordinarily you wouldn't think that was a big deal, but unless you knew who my daddy was. And but my dad had grown up in the Depression, and he thought money was pretty important, and so I remember a long time ago, I used to milk a cow, and one time I got creative and wanted to build a little old fort, so I made it out of cow feed. And I worked a border around the stable with cow feed and pretended it was walls to my fort, and I brought my daddy down as soon as he got home from work to look at my handiwork, and brother, he didn't, I thought it was a great example of creative talent, but my daddy wasn't into art very much, I guess, because he, I still feel the stinging belt on that deal, and but he was really tough on us, or I thought he was, but in recent years, about the time this shovel incident, he had been seemed like he was going a little soft on us, and I didn't know what all that was about, but I knew he sat early in the morning hours. I'd wake up and he was sitting there, Bible reading and kind of contemplating, just thinking about stuff. And we didn't know what all that meant until that one day when my brother broke the shovel. And so everybody was just kind of sitting there in wide-eyed wonder, wondering what my daddy would do when he came up and found that broken shovel. And so pretty soon here he came up through there, just winding up through the huckleberries and Virginia creepers with his walking stick. And, we knew we were fixing to see some fireworks when he saw it. And he made his way on up there, and he started looking around, and he squinted a little bit and saw that sideways tractor, and he saw the driver, which was my brother, and he saw that broke shovel. And I was expecting him to, jerk his belt off and start slinging it and start yelling, and he didn't do anything. He just kind of squinted a little bit and walked off. And one of us kind of found our voice. We thought he was just addled. We thought he was so mad he couldn't think. And one of us found our voice and said, wasn't he going to do anything to Mike on account of that shovel? And he made one sentence reply, and then he walked on. And
what was the reply? What did he say?
The truth is that my brother now, he does a lot of Bible reading and contemplating early in the morning, and he credits my daddy for showing him God, and he showed it to him in just one sentence right there. And he said, well, the boy is worth more than the shovel.
All right.
Well, yeah. that taught me something.
Do you think that God is a thing, or is it a state of mind?
I think God is a person. I think God created us, and I think we're kind of made in His image. We're not God, but we have things in us like God, like creativity and intelligence and justice and love and those sort of things. So, yeah, I think God is a person.
Okay, so when you say that you see God in different things, you're talking about seeing the image of that person in these things in daily life?
Let's see. I guess what I think I'm saying is that in Romans, in the Bible, it says that God has been clearly seen through what has been made. And so His divine nature and that sort of thing are seen through the things made. And so I think that when I see humans behaving in a noble fashion, and when I see love being demonstrated, when I see creation itself, I just kind of think I'm seeing the character of God revealed to us in that, and it brings me a lot of enjoyment to think on that and contemplate on those things.
Okay, so what about on the other side of the coin? When you see people doing bad things and exhibiting hate, do you think that's the devil's side?
Well, I think it's kind of the natural side. The Bible talks about a creation that God made, and then kind of a fall from the natural state of things, or from the way God created them. And so I think that what I really think is that humans have instincts just like animals do, and if we're hungry, we're likely to try to get something to eat, and so if we don't acknowledge this God idea, I think we're likely to just use our instincts to stay alive, and then when those are unbridled, it seems that that's when we have a lot of trouble. So, if you want money and you get greedy with it, and you end up hurting your fellow man by that, that's just your instinct kind of run amok there. You're just trying to stay alive, but we're using means that aren't necessarily the right way to do it.
All right. It doesn't seem like man has come that far since the days of the Bible. I mean, we're still having the same issues. We think we've done so well with all of our technology, and yet, there's still war, there's still killing, there's still hate, there's still all this stuff in the world. More now than probably there ever has been.
Maybe so. I think it's been about the same for the whole time. There is a lot of that, and that is, in my thinking, the result of a man trying to figure it out himself and trying to be the answer to all things, and it's these instincts that we use that we misuse, I think, and so I think it'll keep on being that way, and on the other hand, there's an awful lot of good going on, and there's a lot of people who are doing noble things and good things, and so I tend to focus on those also. And there's one little scripture in the Bible that makes a big difference to me, and where I think it was Jesus talking. He said, "Don't be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." So if I look at that sentence pretty carefully, what it implies is that good's more powerful than evil. And so I'm just going to try to live like that for a little while.
Well, I hope so. I hope that good is more powerful than evil. But the interesting thing about it, and I suppose I can blame the media industry, is that they tend to focus on the bad and on the evil.
Yeah.
You don't hear the good stories on the news. You only hear the bad stories.
Right. Yeah. Tragedy sells.
Tragedy sells. Goodness doesn't. Nobody wants to hear about it. So
yeah, that's good. Unless it's happening to them, then they like it.
Yeah.
So, but the bad stuff sells better.
Okay, so the book is called Christ at the Coffee Shop, and as you said, this is just sort of a collection of short stories, things that have happened to you over your life or with your family.
It's just a collection of stories that are that I've gleaned from life, and each one of them, to me, shows a lesson, that a way of looking at God that is really, to me, really purifying and good and uplifting, and builds me up and gives me hope.
Well, I think on that note, we're going to wind this down. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
I do not.
Okay.
I don't have a website.
You don't have one? All right. Is the book available now?
No.
Is it out?
It is, yes, sir. It went on sale in June the 1st on Amazon.
Okay, so it's on Amazon.
Kindle
all right,
and Audible. Yes.
All right. All right. We'll put that on your show notes, that it's to people to go to Amazon if they want to look for the book. Okay, Nathan. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story, and best of luck with the book. I hope it does well.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Appreciate you having me.